Well, today I am not only honored, but I am humbled and brings a tear seriously to me. I have the honor of being with Dr. Karl Heinz Rauscher. Now, he and I go back through the university that Dr. Angwin St. Just and Rector Graciela Laura created. And he is not only my professor, one of them, but he has also helped me in private sessions, which we will talk about in terms of what he does. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a background because this man deserves so much honor. Dr. Karl Heinz Rauscher, MD, studied medicine in Munich, Germany, and Yale University, the United States of America, and spent many years practicing as a specialist in internal medicine. He is trained in humanistic psychotherapy and group dynamics. He is trained in systemic constellations work, SCW, by Bert Hellinger. In the last 30 years, he developed system constellations, a special form of SCW for body symptoms, organs, and physical and mental disease. He works with an expanded range of energetic disturbances originating in the family of origin, personal trauma in childhood, and unresolved trauma in past lives. In the last years, he combines the shamanic healing method, Healing Voices Rainbow, which is registered with symptom constellations, to achieve a higher level of healing. He has been leading workshops in symptom constellation and Healing Voices Rainbow since 1994 in Germany, Switzerland, Italy, Australia, Sweden, England, Ireland, Netherlands, Latvia, Romania, USA, Canada, Mexico, Argentina, and Australia. In 2024, he published the book Energy Medicine, Healing Voices Rainbows, to make his work available to the international community. This year, 2025, he starts the training in Healing Voices Rainbow and symptom constellations online on Zoom. Wow, I am so honored to have you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I know my audience is waiting, and I cannot wait to share you with them. So welcome, Dr. Karl.
Yeah, thank you, Collie. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure for me to be with you today.
Well, I thought we would start with a few questions anyway. And I was wondering if you could share a bit about your journey from practicing internal medicine to integrating humanistic psychotherapy and systemic constellation work into your practice.
Well, it's really a long story. I started already when I studied medicine in Munich and Yale in the States to be interested more not only in the body, which was always the issue which I learned in university, but I was also interested in what is a human being, and it's obviously more than the body. And of course, the next thing I knew is the soul. So I was reading all the psychological books, psychotherapy, Freud, Jung, and so on, even being a student. And later on, when I was working as a specialist in internal medicine in the clinic here in Germany, I had the pleasure to have a head doctor who was also interested in those things, in psychosomatic. And we have psychosomatic clinics here in Germany, and they treat diseases which everybody is thinking, okay, the soul has something to do with it, like special diseases. So I got all the training in psychotherapy and group dynamics there. And it was in the year 1993 when in a conference I discovered the first book about the family constellation work of Bert Hellinger, published by Gunther Weber, a psychiatrist from Germany also. And I was reading this with my wife on vacation in Italy in that specific year. And when we saw what Bert Hellinger was bringing to psychotherapy, to healing of humans, we both, Irmgard and I, we understood immediately that this is a totally new level of understanding.
Wow.
You know, in the psychosomatic clinic, we were already thinking we were avant-garde doctors by considering the human being being a unity of soul, body, and spirit, but we
Right.
were still looking at the individual. And here comes Bert Hellinger telling us, well, you can only understand a human being if you see and know about the connections of this human being, especially the connections to the family and to the past generations and
Right.
all those traumata happening there, because you're carrying some of that maybe, and you have to know about it to get to really understand what's going on. And with family constellation work, this was all of a sudden possible. So it's just switched over, and ever since I do family constellation work or systemic constellation work.
Wonderful. So is this what inspired you to develop the concept of, the symptom constellations and how it, and how has it evolved over the past 30 years for you?
Really, everybody else, I started with Bert Hellinger's work and got trained by him personally.
Right.
And then I understood as a doctor, and I was not the only one at that point, that you can constellate basically everything which is part of a living system. So as a doctor, I say, well, make an experience by constellating maybe an organ like the heart or the lungs or the kidneys or the brain even, plus also constellating disturbances, diseases.
Right.
Also mental diseases. And we started to do that. And I understood that this is a great way to bring healing towards people who need it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
And,
obviously, so go ahead.
and I called that work then, to just have a name for that, symptom constellations. And there are others who do work and call it symptom constellations. But the way I do it developed over the last 20 years in a very special way, because it's not only body symptoms or mental symptoms like depression, anxiety, aggression, and so on. It also works for like normal life problems, like relationship problems with your partner,
Mm-hmm.
with your children, or even in business, in your work. So you can all your problems, whatever they are, you can do a symptom constellation, and then I concentrate on the problem, the symptom or the disease. This is where I concentrate on, and then I have the question, where is that coming from? And it's always coming from an unresolved trauma.
Right.
And I found out that the family of origin, which was the domain of Bert Hellinger, is only one of several backgrounds or areas where this trauma could have happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out over time now that about 60 to 65% only is the trauma happening in the family of origin.
Right.
Then you have the present family, and then you have the personal trauma. This is what Freud was, of course, working with, and Jung in the early days in the 19th century. And so personal trauma in childhood. And then I found out about how to constellate that, about the parts of your soul which might be still trapped in the trauma freeze. And this is also all a discovery of the last 10 years. And then in addition of that, I think it was 12 years ago, I already had an experience with past lives, and I integrated that into my work. That means that the unresolved trauma, which is causing the symptom and the problem, was really happening in one of your past lives.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
And this is something which is really interesting because it's frequent. 30% of all clients which I see you can find the trauma in past lives. And this was really discovery. And this is also all included in what I call symptom constellation.
Right. And that's what I was going to say in a roundabout way. You've answered it here for me, explaining what the symptom constellations are and how they do differ from the traditional systemic constellation work. So, like I say, in a roundabout way, you already answered that without my question being there first. But how I was going to ask you next about the healing voices rainbow. It is such a unique concept. So how do you combine this method with the symptom constellations to achieve the deeper healing? Can you walk us through a process?
Okay, so I start with how that work came to me.
Yes,
when
please.
it touched my life first.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't No, in the Western world, we don't have the shamans who can teach us about shamanic work.
Right.
The indigenous people, they have that. Not in any case, but there are still, shamans out there. You can learn from them. In
Yeah.
the Western world, you don't have that. So what happened to me is that obviously the energetic healing powers, they chose me as not the only one, of course, but chose me to get in touch with it. And it happened in indigenous sweat lodge, which I was leading like 20 years ago for my training group in these days.
Okay.
And we, in an indigenous sweat lodge, you do some singing to begin with in the first round, just to get the energy flowing. So we were used to let our voices sound. And all of a sudden I heard some high tones and even like words out of ancient languages coming through me. And everybody else, there were more than 20 people in this wet lodge, were falling silent. And some of them were very touched and even crying and getting some profound healing experience during that. I wasn't aware during the singing. But after that, they said, well, what did you do?
Oh.
I said, well, I don't know. I mean, it felt some healing energies flowing through me, but I don't know what it is. I don't know where it's coming from. But I already said, well, some healing energy, some healing voices maybe. But I didn't want to do that. I didn't have a training from a shaman. And I was already a medical doctor. I was a systemic constellator. I was a trainer in systemic constellation work. I said,
right.
No, that's too much. I'm not a shaman. I'm not doing this. And they refused to do that with clients.
Okay.
For years. But sometimes when somebody was ill in the family, I used it. And it was just for my family members. And it always was very healing. Instantly, like in a few minutes, it was an improvement of the symptoms there. But still, I refused to do it in my practice with clients. And then it happened to me what with so many shamans obviously happened also. If they refuse to do it, to follow their calling into this realm, I got very sick. Over many weeks, I could not even read my emails without getting
goodness,
sweating and going back to bed. And I said, okay, this is serious. I need to get some tests to rule out maybe a brain tumor or something like this. But doctors are also just normal people. So I waited another week, no change. Another week, no change, and said, okay, I have to go to have an MRT. And then the night before I had the MRT, I was not sleeping. I was worried. I said, what will I do if I really have a brain tumor?
Right. Yeah.
And then I understood, okay, wow. Just think that my neighbor would have like a gift like this and being able to heal with those shamanic healing powers, but he would not just dare to do it. I said, too bad. Then I understood that very night that maybe I don't have the right even to hold that back from my clients and from the world, basically. And so I said, okay, made a deal. If they don't find anything, and if I get well again, I will put it on top of my very front of my homepage. I will offer it to any client who wants that.
Oh, wow.
And so the next day, they didn't find anything. And 3 days later, this is the truth. 3 days later, I was perfectly well. I could work. I was up. And I said, okay, I understood. So then I started to offer that for people just in a single-to-single situation. Mm-hmm. Still not in constellations, just the people would lay down on the bed or sit on a chair, and I would sing those healing voices for them.
Right.
And I had good results with that. And a few years later, I had a situation in a constellation. It was a war crime. The grandfather was a murderer in the Second World War. And we had the victims, we had the other perpetrators in the field. But I was not able to find any good solution for the client. The client was the granddaughter of that man.
Oh, okay.
And I had the idea, I said, well, we stop now, or what can we do? And all those sentences to give back the burden to the parents, that just didn't work. You could see that in the constellation. And then I had the idea, well, maybe healing voices, the shamanic healers, maybe can do something about it. So I asked the client, and she agreed. And I invited those healing voices to bring more healing to the whole energy field of the client. And then it started, and it was really a tremendous healing possible in that very constellation. So the energy of the perpetrators left the energy field, and more astonishing, even the souls of the victims were liberated from the trauma. Mm-hmm. And so it was much easier for the client to really let go of the burden, because there was was not necessary. The trauma was solved.
Right.
And then I understood I can do that more often. And nowadays, in 95% of all my symptom constellations in the last phase, I invite the shamanic healing powers, and they do wonderful work.
Yes. And I can totally agree to all of this, because I have been privileged to experience a session with you where it helped unbelievably with having to do with dental. And I cannot thank you enough, because I have gone on to heal amazingly. And so is my dentist, totally shocked. But anyway, that came out of, a session with you. So I'm just honoring what you do. And I'm just letting the audience know it's personal experience.
We were separated.
Oh,
I lost you.
Oh,
or you lost me.
Oh, okay. I was just saying that I can totally attest to the work you do, because I have been privileged to be a client and have a session with you, and
yes.
it had to do with my dental work, and like I say, even my dentist is astounded. So thank you so much for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I will, of course, be sharing information to the audience so they can get in touch with you. But I wanted to go on here with regards to your workshops and the global impact before we get into your new book. I wanted to say, you've led workshops in countries all over the world. And I want to know, have you noticed cultural differences in how people approach or, are responding to systemic constellation work and energy healing?
Well, basically what I found out is that systemic constellation work is possible everywhere. Okay. And is received very well everywhere, and is also effective everywhere.
Right.
And of course, there are cultural differences, speaking about the sort of unresolved trauma in the background. And of course, you have different history in the United States or in Canada or in Australia, mm-hmm. but they are also similar. Like here in Europe, you have the First World War as a great source of trauma. You have the Second World War. And it depends on which country you are. If you go to the Eastern European countries, then you have all this also. Plus, in addition to that, you have dictatorship of the communist era in different countries. Stalin, Ceausescu in Romania, and so on. So, and if you go to the United States, you have the genocide of the indigenous peoples as a big issue. You have the slavery as a big issue there. And of course, also the same wars, First and Second World War, plus now the war in Korea and other wars after that, Vietnam, of course, and mm-hmm. the actual wars. So, and if you go to Australia, you have the genocide on the indigenous people there. Right. Or in South America, like in Argentina, the Maoris, not Maoris, the Mapuches, the indigenous peoples there, and they're almost gone there, but still, the unresolved trauma is collectively in the society and in the families as strong as otherwise.
Absolutely.
Other people. So you can do this work, and it's always needed. Mm-hmm. And there are some hotspots like in Eastern Europe or in England or also in Germany. You have the colonialism and all those crimes done there. So it's very rich and very, trauma wise, and the possibilities are great with constellation work and healing voices.
So, Dr. Rauscher, what are some of the most profound transformations that you've witnessed during your workshops? Can you give an example of one?
Well, I had one. I have many, of course.
Yes, of course.
Many,
Yes.
and they're sometimes similar, sometimes very different.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember this one woman, and she has depression for decades. She said she never really enjoyed life. And of course, she had also suicidal thoughts. And she came to me, and I knew her before, and nobody would guess the depth of the depression in her because she could hide it. But she said the world and life was never colorful for her, and she is really suffering. Mm-hmm. And we did one constellation with including healing voices, and she smiled and said, "Now it's gone."
Wow.
And she walked out. And it was gone. And she wrote me 2 weeks later. She says, "It's still gone. Now the world is colorful for me. I have joy in life." And now she was a German woman. And now she is part of my German training on healing voices, which started last year. So she wants to learn that and bring that work also to other people. So this is like one.
Right.
One thing, but I could really go on. And in my book, I have many examples for that also.
Right. And that leads me to that is, your book and your future directions here. Your book, Energy Medicine, Healing Voices Rainbow, makes your work accessible to a broader audience. There's no doubt, right? So what key messages or insights do you hope readers will take away from it?
Well, one is that this book opens up the path for people who do energetic healing work or want to do healing. And reading the book, they will find out what it needs for them to be a medium for shamanic healing energies. Why it is not necessary to bring light in all the personal shadow areas, and why it's necessary to also get rid of all the influences of the ego on both sides. That means supremacy. If you have supremacy, you have to heal that. If on the other side, if you have false modesty, and you don't dare to follow your inner calling into the healing work, you have also to find a healing for this. And you can do this with symptom constellations in combination with healing voices. And this is a big part of the training I'm offering. And the second thing is, and it's all in the book, how you can do symptom constellations. There's a very structured way to do symptom constellations the way I do it. So you go towards the original trauma. Original trauma is then defined as the trauma which is causing the disease, causing the symptom, causing the problem in the relationship.
Okay.
And you do this with test positions, and this is my development really, to do test positions, and so you can work with the unknown.
Okay, can you explain?
Every facilitator of family constellations knows that sometimes there are secrets in the family, and even if the client collects all the information out of the family and does a decent family tree, there's still like blank areas, and most of the time, they are very important. And with symptom constellation I develop with test positions, you can find out, even if nobody knows what really happened. And this is true for family of origin. This is true also for past life trauma, because in this case, nobody knows, but you can find out. And this is all in the book, how you do this. Okay. What is important on the way to reveal all that.
So what are your test positions that you explain in the book?
Well, first of all, I do the so-called 4-column test in the very beginning of a symptom constellation.
Okay.
As already mentioned, the 4 big areas where the trauma which you want to find could have happened is family of origin, is present family, your love partners and your children. It is personal trauma in your life, childhood, youth, or later, and it is past life trauma. So those four. And with a test, and there's an article about this in my blog, how to do this. You can, in 3 minutes, it does not take me more than 3 minutes to do a test and see where this is the trauma coming from. And then you know whether it's coming from the family of origin. You even know whether it's coming from the father's side or the mother's side.
Wonderful.
Or whether it's from the present family, or whether it's a childhood trauma, or whether it's a past life trauma. That means you know where to go. You don't have to guess or see or try it with your intuition to see in the constellation where might it be. You know, you have a red thread which you can follow. So these are, of course, all those 4 positions in the test are, you can say this is test positions. You don't know, so you test it. Mm-hmm. And other possibilities are, for example, let's stick with a war crime example.
Okay.
Sometimes people even don't know whether the grandfather or great-grandfather was even a soldier in a world war, in a war. They
Right.
don't know because it was a secret. So you can test that. And how I do this if the 4-column test shows that the trauma is in the family of origin, then it's not a test position, but it's a good position to help you find the trauma is the original trauma, even if you don't know what it is, even if so far by asking the client what is known, it's not showing up. I bring the position original trauma, defined as the trauma who's causing the problem. And then we have to find then the family member who has a direct contact to this original trauma. And then I go back generation by generation. So if it's on father's side, I bring the father. It could maybe he was the one who experienced the trauma. Or then I bring his parents, the grandparents, grandfather, grandmother. And if none of them shows a connection to the original trauma, I go back even another generation, in case it's an even older trauma, until I find the one who really has a good and clear connection to the trauma. And then, for example, the great-grandfather shows connection to the original trauma, then you still don't know what it was.
Right.
And then you can test, and this is a classical situation where you work with test positions. You can test a war, like the Second World War. With the question, is the trauma connected or happened in the frame of Second World War? And if the Second World War shows a connection, I mean, the representative of the Second World War shows a connection to the original trauma, it's a war crime.
Oh,
and it happened during the Second World War. And already, maybe this specific great-grandfather shows a connection to the trauma. Then it's a war crime. Then you still don't know what happened.
Right.
But the next question is, of course, with war trauma, there may be some murdered people, victims there. So you can test, are there victims involved? So test positions, like always do 3, victim 1, victim 2, victim 3, are they existing? Are they part of the energy field of the client? And if they show to exist and their feelings, they normally show the feelings in the trauma freeze, feeling dead or suffering or like being hanged or whatever. In the sense, murdered people are part of the original trauma. There happened murder, maybe many victims,
right?
3, 4, or 5. Then the question is how is this great-grandfather connected to those victims? Is he a perpetrator, or is he on the side of the victims? Maybe. So it's unclear. Nobody knows.
Right.
And you ask the representative of the great-grandfather once the victims arrived and show that they are connected to the original trauma. What does he feel? Mm-hmm. If he has aggression towards the victims, he is on the perpetrator side. If
Okay.
he gets very sad, then he is on the victim side, maybe having lost a dear one by that murder in that original trauma.
Right.
And so what the next thing is, if it's not clear at this point, you bring also as test positions, but they are not really test positions, because if they're victims, they gotta be perpetrators. So you bring the ones who did that. Somebody did it, so you bring like 3 perpetrators, and then you see how they feel, and then you bring in more perpetrators to maybe mirror that this is a perpetrator system, which is often the case in a war, meaning that there are perpetrators in a higher hierarchy positions giving the orders. And so I tried to go back more and more perpetrators until I have and identify the leader of that perpetrator system.
Wow.
And then after that, it's if you have the leader and you recognize the leader by radiating the most aggression towards the system, then I know that this is the leader of the perpetrator system. You still don't know who that was.
Right.
But you can, which nationality also. But then you can do another test position by testing the nationality. For example, in Germany, I test German or Russian or English, whatever is in the field. And if German nationality connects to the row of perpetrators and the leading perpetrators, okay, this was a German perpetrator system.
Okay.
And then I try, in this case, just to stay with that example, I bring Hitler as a test position next to the highest perpetrator. Is he the one, or is it still somebody else? And if the test position Hitler melts or merges with a specific position of the highest perpetrator, Hitler, the energy of Hitler is still with his aggression in the energy field of the client. And it's important to see that, because it has been the case for so long, just on the unconscious. So this brings that up. And then you go back to the great-grandfather and see, okay, if the perpetrators arrive, even Hitler is standing there. In this case, how does he react now? Sometimes they even make the Hitler greeting there, and okay, he was a Nazi. He was a Nazi, meaning by his political situation. I don't have the English word now for that.
No, I understand. Yeah.
But this still does not tell you, well, maybe he was just supporting, the Nazis, supporting Hitler, supporting the perpetrators, but you still don't know, has the great-grandfather, has he personal guilt? Did he really kill somebody? Or being involved in betraying somebody who is then killed, for example? You still don't know. So to find out, I bring a next test position, in this case, the issue guilt. I bring it as guilt, and to see where guilt goes and to whom it connects.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
And if guilt connects only to the perpetrators and Hitler in this case, okay, the guilt is there. But sometimes guilt turns around and accuses then the great-grandfather. And then okay, he was guilty. He was a perpetrator.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
What you see then that the representative of the great-grandfather, then after it's open, everybody knows. Then he shows it openly. Then he shows the aggression towards the perpetrator, victims. Sorry. But on the other hand, if that is not the case, maybe the great-grandfather is sad and connected to the victims. Then he's not on the perpetrator side; he's on the victim side, and then it could be that he lost a loved one, by this perpetrator system.
Right.
And then can bring another test position by a victim. You have to define that position, of course, a victim who had a personal relationship to the great-grandfather. So this is also a test position because don't know whether somebody like this exists in the energy field of the
Exactly.
client. So you bring that with the other victims, and then if the representative of this position shows that it's belonging, that she or he is there, then okay, somebody exists who had a personal relationship and was murdered by, in this case, German perpetrators, and it was a lost trauma what the great grandfather was suffering, and therefore he is carrying the grief, and in the background, behind the grief, often a person like this, like the great grandfather in this case, carries also revenge aggression towards the perpetrators.
Right.
And revenge aggression in the system is very dangerous because it is often causing autoaggressive disease and autoimmune disease.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. This is amazing. Your book.
And it's all in the book, really.
Yeah, exactly.
And even more detailed. It's all in there.
Oh, wow. So I have not personally, read the book yet, your book yet. So where I'm going to post where, your information, but where can people obtain, where is your book available through?
You can order it everywhere.
Okay.
It's on big online stores like Amazon, and you can go to your bookstore and give them the information, and they will order it for you. And if you order it in the United States, it will be printed in the United States and shipped to you. If you order it in Australia, it will be printed in. It's books on demand. So you order it, and the specific book gets printed and shipped to you.
Wonderful.
If you order it in England or in Europe, it will be printed here in Europe and shipped to you.
Okay.
So but of course it needs like 4 or 5 days till you have that.
Right.
But your bookstore will also do that for you.
Okay.
And if you wanted to have right now, it's available as an ebook already
on Amazon.
So on everywhere where you can order ebooks. Also Google Play, also Apple Books, also Kobo. So everywhere where you can buy ebooks, you find that book and you download it in seconds.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I just want everybody to remember, and they will not forget now for sure. The book is Energy Medicine, Healing Voices Rainbow. Fabulous. I will be ordering it as soon as I get off this call with you. For sure.
And if you give people the link to the specific site on my website, then you have all the links to the different ebooks
for sure.
Stores, and you have or to Amazon, and you go to a bookstore around the corner and tell them with the ESP with the title, they will be able to.
Perfect. I will be providing the link for sure. Absolutely. Now, I was going to ask you, with regards to your upcoming online training programs, how do you envision, making the systemic constellation work and energy healing more accessible to the global community?
Well, the concept is all done, and there will be a pilot weekend in April now. You can also already register to that. It's Saturday and Sunday, and we will talk about the training, what's all the content, how it's done, and we will do also symptom constellation and healing voices, all with the training inputs already. So, and then you see who else is there, who is interested, because then if you really want to do the training, which is starting in October this year, you have to be clear that you will stay with this group for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
It will be a fixed group then of maybe 15 or 20 people. I don't know. We will see. And then will have 3-day workshops 4 times a year. That means every third month we have a 3-day workshop online on Zoom per year. That means in this period of 2 years, it will be 8 workshops, 3 days each. And this is like the first module, and this is the module practitioner. And after this, you get a certificate for using Healing Voices Rainbow, the shamanic method, in an individual situation, on a one-to-one basis. without, not with constellation work, only healing voices. You will, of course, those people who will be in the practitioner module, in the first module, will experience many symptom constellations, and I will teach them. So you will have like a basic training in symptom constellations too.
Mm-hmm.
But the aim of the first module is to work on a one-to-one basis with healing voices, rainbow, the shamanic healing method. And then you can, then that's it if you want, but you can go on with the second module, which I call the healer module. And then you get more of that. You get more of your own personal development with more shadow work with your ego. And you see the others progress. And you, of course, we will make exercises already in the first module by doing healing voices in little groups for each other. And I will tell people how can they use the time in between those workshops to really get into this work. And after the second module, which is also 2 years, and it's also 8 workshops for each 3 days, you will have you will get the certificate to also work with groups, with healing voices, rainbow. Still not with symptom constellations. Okay. You can also do this and use it if you're already working with symptom constellations. But the certificate for healing voices, rainbow, the healer, you can use that in a one-to-one basis still, and with groups, and even online. If you have groups with that, you can even work with that. And then if you have that and you want to have more, and go into the third module, which is the master. It's also 2 years, and it's more often than you have they have not 4 workshops a year, you have 6 workshops a year, 3 days each. And then you get more into really the deep work with symptom constellations and how to combine the healing voices, rainbow energy in the soul work, in the constellation. And the reason why this has to be it takes so long and so much input until you get really the knowledge to really do this in a constellation is that if you work with healing voices in a symptom constellations, you could have perpetuator energy there. Mm-hmm. You could have aggressive energies, or even negative aspects of energy there. And to deal with that would be much too early in the first or second module.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You have to. So everybody who's getting all through this time, even the first 2 years, but if you go to the end, to the 6 years, then you will have a tremendous development of your personality in all the thinkable aspects. Mm-hmm. And it's more than you would, if you would not do that, because we are not just waiting for the next symptom to appear. We are really actively searching for the shadow areas in the personalities of the participants, and where is maybe some hidden layer of supremacy. That means supremacy means that you think you are higher than other people. You can do it. And if you want to work with healing voices, this is poison. This will not work, because you, as a medium for healing voices rainbow, you are just a tool. If you think that you are the great person to do that, it stops. Nothing happens then. And so this is what part of that work. And this cannot be. You cannot learn this in 1 or 2 sessions. No. You need. This is like a really spiritual and development, which everybody will go through. Though this is really a decision to do that, but you don't have to know that in the beginning. How far you will go into this the whole training. What you decide in the beginning is for the first 2 years. And if some people will say, okay, that's it for me. I work with healing voices rainbow in my practice on a one-to-one basis, online or in person. That's it. I don't need more. And then you just stop there, and you have still the certificate for that, but you can go on.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Fantastic. It's going to be fabulous. I was going to ask you, and you kind of touched on it with what you were just saying, and that's, how do you see the relationship between science, medicine, and spirituality in this healing process?
You feed the relationship between. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, is by the way, this is the book. It
Yes,
looks like
yes,
this. Yeah, and it's actually really the first forward. In the forward, I already write about this. How you can bring the fact that there are healing energies in the world. How
right,
can you feed in this or understand this in the normal Western scientific understanding? I'm scientifically trained as a medical doctor, of course,
right.
so I always want to know, but I know also where the boundaries and the problems of so-called scientific understanding nowadays is, because it's only really connected to matter. To
Mm-hmm.
matter, and the invisible world is not considered to be worthy of investigation, because if it's invisible, if you can't measure it, today's scientists consider that now to be worthy of investigation. But this is what I call. If you read this is my legacy.
Right.
As a doctor for the world, really, because this will open up a totally new era.
Oh, wonderful. And so we're getting close to the end, but I wanted to ask you a couple of more questions. And one was, what advice, doctor, would you give to practitioners or individuals, looking to explore and integrate these modalities into their personal and professional lives? What advice would you give?
Well, on the personal level, if you have any problem or whatever you're suffering from, even if it's just a discontentment with your life, or something is not right for you, or you have an actual problem or a disease, do a symptom constellation. And you can do this. You don't have to wait till I'm coming to your country. You can do this online. And we did online work together. So you just drop me an email and you can have an appointment for a symptom constellation combined with Healing Voices Rainbow online on Zoom. And it works really good. So you don't even need a group for this.
No, it does. It works great.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you want to integrate that work into your healing work as a psychotherapist or a doctor or a healer, then of course you have the possibility to be part of the training of Healing Voices Rainbow, which starts this year. And this is what I would recommend.
Okay. And you mentioned with regards to that training, and I'm so super excited for people that will be joining you. And it is, as you mentioned, it was a calling for you, and I believe that for others as well, to really pay attention to their callings. But what's next for you in 2025 and beyond? I know that is a big project for you. You've got the book and you've got the trainings coming out. So what else might you be excited to share with the world? Because I know you've got something else probably cooking.
Well, I'm a writer, and I write novels and other things, and this is always a project. But I write in German, so I have new novels coming out maybe next year. But I do all this writing in addition to all what I do on the therapy and training side. So it's not so much. But so far I mentioned I managed to publish 7 books.
Wow.
So it is possible. And this is now the first book in English, which is I'm super excited about this, because I just think that really everybody around the globe, so many people can, wherever they live, they can understand. Many of them, especially the people who are in psychotherapy or constellators, they do understand English, that they really get access to that.
Right.
And the other thing is maybe the collective constellations. And there are the 5 large collective constellations on YouTube, which I did on different issues. There is one on COVID crisis. There is one on on climate crisis. There is one on the relationship between women and men worldwide. There is one about racism, which is also an issue which is important for all of us. And the fifth is the war in Ukraine.
Wow.
And this is a 3-hour work, and it's all on YouTube. And if you want to, if somebody wants to see that, they can just go to my website and go to Collective Constellations, and they have a short introduction and scroll down, and you have all those video recordings of those collective constellations. And why I mention it now is because the future could need more understanding on the collective and the political backstage plans of our times. And there's so much going on.
Yes.
And with constellation work, you can look on the personal level into the unconscious and the hidden. And this is also true for the collective.
Right.
You can, with collective constellations, you could look behind the scenes. You can get information, how it's really connected. And then something changes in you if you experience that. And the future music in that is that maybe over time, people get interested on a big scale, and with all the technology we have today, that more and more people can experience those collective constellations. And if the more people know about it, the more people have also the access to the input and the knowledge which is coming through it. Plus, also in those collective constellations, experience the shamanic healing. There's also a shamanic healing part to those collective constellations. Experience it emotionally. The more people have that, the more it is maybe hope that on the big scale there's a change towards the better.
Yes, absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. It's profound. It really is. I have watched a few of them, and I'm.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it is coming to that sensibility and feeling and somatically embracing for myself the collective and understanding just how important that is in our life personally. So I'm going to ask you one more question here, and that was and is, if you could leave your listeners, which are my audience and your audience now, with one piece of wisdom about their own healing journey, what would it be?
You are all connected. You are all connected in a deep way to all the other people, to your people, to humanity, to nature, to the universe. You are a part of a great whole. And be this part. Dare to be that part. And it's all in you. Just listen to your soul.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm really honored and very touched. And I just adore you and your wife, who I will be interviewing tomorrow. I'm just so honored, and I cannot thank you enough, Dr. Karl Heinz Rauscher.
You're very welcome. Yeah, thank you for having me, really.
I'm so grateful. Yes.
I enjoyed the talk. Yeah, thank you, Carly.
Blessings. Yeah.